Samore seems like he's kind of under attack a lot. I guess that could go to either one of you guys.
You take it. Yeah, I mean, you look at all the goals tonight. I mean, didn't really give him much help. So we have all the confidence in the world in Crow, and he's never really a worry in our mind. So I think, like Taser said in the beginning, we kind of weren't as good as we were in game one tonight, especially defensively, and we gave them too many chances. And they're a good team. They got a lot of good offensive players that are going to capitalize on their chances. So we'll try to be better as a team defensively next game. And this is what's fun about the playoffs. These highs and lows. And I think we're happy we got an opportunity here, and it's exciting. So I think we'll be excited to bounce back and have a better game in game 3.
We'll take the next question from Ben Pope from the Sun-Times. A reminder to everyone on Zoom, please direct your question to a specific player.
Hi, Patrick. With Kajula out and Quenneville in, and you end up double shifting a good amount, did that sort of disrupt the offensive flow a little bit and just the rotation of the lines that you guys had going?
Yeah, I think we're always a better line or a better team when we're rolling 4 lines. As a player, you want to play as much as possible, but I think we're a team that needs everyone going. And, I thought Quenneville did a good job in the limited role he had tonight. He was skating hard. He was finishing his checks and came in and did a good job for us when he was out there. But Drake's a big part of our lineup too. We missed him tonight. He brings a physical edge to his game and likes to mix it up. So we'll welcome that back in game 3.
We'll take a couple more for the guys before we wrap up with them. We'll start with Scott King. Scott, go ahead.
Yeah, for Patrick, Slater Cuckoo had a pretty nice goal. I guess what'd you make of his shot and kind of his complete game as a defenseman?
Yeah, big goal for us. To find that little pocket there, Brinksy made a nice pass to him, and he made a nice shot. So I thought he had a good, strong game for us, offensively chipping in. He had a couple nice shots from the point as well. And defensively, he was taking up a lot of time and space. So, I think when he was inserted into the lineup this year, he did a good job of that, and made the coaches see that he's capable of being a good defenseman for us, and he's been a big part of our defense ever since he got in. So he did that again tonight, and he's a tough guy to play against. So he's been good for us.
Take the last question from Mark Lazarus. Mark, go ahead.
Jonathan, Patrick touched on it a little bit, but were you disappointed by the lack of pushback in the third period? You guys had come back repeatedly, and then they got those 2 goals, and really the Oilers completely dominated the rest of that game. Were you disappointed with the pushback?
I don't think it's lack of, confidence or a good feeling in the locker room or saying and doing the right things. I think we just, again, made their forecheck a little bit too easy. A couple of times, you can hear everything in the building and there's not a lot of talk, and we can do a better job, guys like myself especially, talking to our D-men, making sure we know where the pressure's coming from, and just some little plays that sometimes we know where the hits are going to come from. We can slow up their forecheck and get out of our zone a little bit easier, and that lets us get on offense. So we got stuck in our own zone a few too many times, just by easy plays that were there that we got a little jumpy with the puck, and all 5 guys need to be better in our D zone, and the response would have been there, but they did a good job of putting pressure on us and keeping us down low in our own zone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll be joined shortly by Blackhawks forward Kirby Dach and defenseman Slater Cuckoo. We'll start taking questions upstairs for Kirby and Slater. Derek Van Diest, go ahead.
Yeah, Kirby, I just want to ask you about, you guys did a good job of battling back from behind today, getting back and tie the game. But how tough is that to play from behind and to constantly try and get back in the game and trying to make up those deficits?
Yeah, I think it's tough against any team, but especially against them. They got so much talent up front. It's hard to come back from, and they do a good job of shutting it down defensively. And obviously, we weren't ready to go and let up a couple goals in the first few minutes. And those are things we got to tighten up for next game, or it's going to be a short series. So it's our job to respond, and I think we'll do that.
Slater, I wanted to ask you about Connor McDavid. What's it like out there trying to slow that guy down? He just seems to do everything at 100 miles an hour, and that second goal was a good example of that, just the way he handled the puck on that second goal.
Yeah, we know 97 is going to get chances. It's all about limiting them and, making sure those chances stay outside, or, he's working hard. I think he got a couple fortuitous bounces tonight. But obviously the second goal, high skill. The puck jumped on Ole, kind of backspun, and then when 97 gets a step, it's pretty hard to stop him. So
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll move to the Zoom portion of our call. We'll start with Charlie Rumeliotis. Charlie, go ahead and unmute your mic.
Hey, Kirby. It seemed like you, Patrick, and Alex really clicked tonight. What was working so well with you three that allowed you to kind of have that success together?
I think we just feed off each other. We know where each other's going to be on the ice. I think for myself, it took me a while to learn how to play with Kaner and Kat and where they're going to be. And once we kind of figured it out, maybe we can be a good line. And obviously we had a good night tonight, but at the end of the day, we lost the game. And we got to figure out what we did wrong as a group and regroup tomorrow and come back on the next game and be ready to play.
Take the next question from Phil Thompson. Phil, go ahead.
This is again for Kirby. Can you determine if there was anything different that the Oilers did on the PK? Why you guys didn't have more success on the power play tonight?
Yeah, I think they just blocked a lot of shots tonight. We had our chances on the power play, and obviously it hurts us when we're not scoring those goals because there's critical times in the game where we could have tied it up. So we just got to find a way to get our shots through and make cleaner plays. And we had our chances. I mean, we're not turning on each other and screaming and yelling and starting to change things up. But we just got to work through that and come back and be ready to go next game.
We'll take the next question from Scott King. Scott, go ahead.
For Slater, obviously you scored tonight. Is that a part of your game you're looking to showcase more, getting on the offense like that?
I think it was just a nice play by Kat. I'm coming through the slot there. If you watch the games, you could have a couple of those chances per game. It's nothing different that I've been doing. Kat made a nice pass, and I was lucky enough to make a nice shot and finish it off.
Take one more question for the guys. Scott Powers, go ahead.
Slater, last game you guys were pretty effective, 5-on-5, and especially kind of, keeping them away from the net. What did you see differently in this game?
It's tough to say. We'll have to go over all our shifts and kind of watch the game back. I thought, we did okay on our retrievals when they dump it in. We knew they were going to come hard, and I thought we could have been cleaner a few times, but that might be an area where we look at and just we need guys talking in the D zone, like either it's switching or where they want the puck or where our open guy is. I think talk is an easy thing that any guy can do, and we need more of that for next game.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
We'll be joined shortly by Chicago Blackhawks head coach Jeremy Colleton.
Yeah, so obviously not the game we wanted to have. Following up game one, we knew they were going to come out with a lot of desperation and with something to prove, and we just didn't have enough guys going to match it. I thought we did some good things in the first couple of periods to stay in the game, give ourselves a chance, but ultimately we didn't play to the level we need to beat this team. So we knew going into the series it was going to be a challenge, and we'll take tomorrow to prepare and prepare better. We need to prepare better because we didn't make it hard enough on them to generate offense. We weren't able to sustain time in the offensive zone, and ultimately we paid the price for it.
Thank you, Coach. We'll begin the portion of this availability upstairs. Derek Van Diest, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, Jeremy, I just want to ask you about the energy it takes to kind of keep battling from behind. I know you guys did a good job of coming back and tying the game, but how much does it take out of your top guys when you kind of keep throwing them over the boards and they got to keep chasing the game like that?
Yeah, we not the start we wanted, without question. So you have a chance to maybe continue the frustration that they may have been feeling going into the game, and right away they're feeling good and feeling they're turning it around, and their top players feeling confident, and then it's an uphill battle. And again, I thought some of our guys were really good, and they allowed us to stay in the game, but not enough of them.
I also want to ask you about, you had 4 power plays in that second period, and how big of an opportunity missed is that, considering how good your power play was in game one?
Yeah, it was, as you say, it was an opportunity to, find our way more into the game. We had some chances. We didn't score. They got a couple saves. They blocked a couple shots when we had some pretty good situations. So, we'll look at it and adjust.
Thanks, Coach.
We'll move to Zoom now. We'll start with Scott Powers from The Athletic. Scott, go ahead and unmute your mic, please.
Jeremy, what went into the decision with bringing in John Quenneville, and how much did their quick start kind of interrupt how you probably wanted to go with your lines?
Yeah, we just felt that Quenneville could bring some size and physicality. Obviously we missed that with Jules being out. It's unfortunate for him because we didn't have everyone going to play a 4-line game. I think that's where he would have been able to have more of an impact. We had to shorten up right away because we just didn't have enough guys ready to play. So I don't think it was through no fault of his own really that he all of a sudden starts missing shifts pretty early on, just because I'm trying to manufacture lines that we felt could play. He needed to have some shifts in a 4-line rotation to get in the game and feel comfortable, and he didn't get that. So, that's unfortunate. What's your, sorry, I forgot your second part.
We'll go to the next question from John Dietz. John, go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy. Jonathan and Slater were both talking about how guys weren't talking enough kind of during the game. I'm just curious, did you notice that as maybe being a problem, just a communication thing where, in most playoff games you can't do that, obviously, but is it something guys just have to start getting used to doing, and because there's obviously no fans in the building?
Yeah, you can talk no matter what. I feel like even in the loudest buildings, when you're in tight, you can talk, but start on the first shift with the first retrieval where we didn't talk and we turned the puck over and it's in the back of our net. So we just, that's, if you break out clean, you don't have to defend as much and you can create more. And that's something we wanted to do is spend more time in the offensive zone. And we really didn't. We weren't able to get to the neutral zone as cleanly as certainly the game before. And a lot of that is communication and then execution. You know, I don't think we made enough plays either. So it's a tough formula to win.
We'll take the next question from Carter Baum. Carter, go ahead.
Jeremy talked a lot about coming out of game one about puck possession and how you guys were able to kind of dominate that aspect of the game. Tonight, there were more turnovers, not only in frequency, but it looked like in just very difficult positions to really recover from, especially on some of those early goals.
Yeah, absolutely. Turned it over in our end, turned it over in the neutral zone. We weren't able to protect the puck in the offensive zone. So, you know, we're not able to sustain zone time. And, you know, it's tough to win. So I also thought a reaction, you know, when we did turn it over to defend was too slow, especially early on, and they were able to take advantage.
Take the next question from Ben Pope. Ben, go ahead.
Jeremy, it seemed like some of the younger guys like Boquist and Strome and Nylander had kind of off nights. How can they learn from this as the playoffs roll on?
Yeah, it's hard to play. There's a reason why it's a difficult championship to win. You got to go through teams they're willing to put it all on the line for success, and they're learning the level you need to reach. You know, compete 50-50s, being strong on the puck, being clean with the puck when you're going to get run over. They'll learn from it, but they're not alone. They weren't the only ones, but certainly we need more from the whole group. We need everyone going because it's a really good team. They have some tremendous high-end ability. We need to defend as five. We need to attack as five, and you can't have any passengers.
Take a couple more questions for Coach. We'll start with Charlie Rumoyotis. Charlie, go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy, what did you like about the Kane, DeBrincat, Doc line? It seemed like they really clicked together when you put them.
Yeah, that line kept us in the game in a lot of ways. You know, I think early on it looked like Kirby and Kat were going, and so we put Kane with them, started double shifting them, and then just seemed like that was the three that we should play together to get the most out of those guys. And you know, again, we had it tight for a while. At some point, you know, you're not always going to play your best, and you try to find a way to win anyway. And we just didn't have enough in the end to close the gap and tie it up.
Take one more question for Coach. Mark Lazarus, go ahead.
Hey, Jeremy, your guys fought back a few times in the first two periods, but really didn't muster a whole lot in the third. Did you get a sense they were deflated by that fifth goal, maybe the sixth one also, or do you have any concerns about the lack of a pushback?
Well, to me, you gain your energy from each other, and by you know, the desperation in our game, we didn't have enough, and so it's hard to sustain momentum. We weren't able to string shifts together. I think it very rarely happened where we were able to get 30-40 seconds in the offensive zone to build on, and you draw a penalty or you score a goal or you start to wear them down, and we just, you know, it's protecting the puck. It's being clean. When you do have time to make a play, we didn't do enough of that. So we'll respond. It's a 1-1 series. You know, I'm sure no one picked us to sweep them. So they won a game. Now we got to find a way to be better on Wednesday, and we will.
Thank you, Coach.
Thanks.
Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. We're streaming live on Facebook, broadcasting from the illustrious studios of WCPT 820 AM in the beautiful, beautiful city of Chicago, in the great neighborhood of Jefferson Park. This is another edition of the Rewind Sports 60. It's yours truly, Jerry Riles. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation. And, of course, ladies and gentlemen, you love them. He's not over at Wrigley Field. He's not on the rooftops over there. He's not at Comiskey Park or the Guarantee Rate Field. He's not. No, he's in studios, ladies and gentlemen. You love him. And before we're out of here, no question about it, I'm sure we're going to get an opportunity to hear his point of view as far as high school football is concerned, being pushed to the spring.
March,
ladies and gentlemen, he is the one. He's the only. He's the marvelous one. He's Dan Marver. What's up, Marver? How are you, buddy?
It's nice and wet today.
Hey, take it easy.
Outside. And, I actually enjoyed the Blackhawks game yesterday. They won a game in Edmonton. It was pretty cool. And the Cubs just won a game, so things are underway. I'm just, the Marlins and the Phillies, it looks like it's going the way we thought, where it's going to be tough to finish the season, but we shall see.
Yeah, we shall certainly see. And you know what? It's interesting. We'll get an opportunity to talk Major League Baseball. If you want to join in, our number here is 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. The fastest hour in sports conversation. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, and of course, the marvelous one, Lauren Cox is en route. Hey, let me say this. Lauren, drive safely. I know you're certainly listening to us as you're driving in from the downtown Chicagoland area, the beautiful city of Chicago. But ladies and gentlemen, I want you to be safe. I want you to be careful out there. Of course, the marvelous one wants to make sure you guys all and girls stay in one piece. But, the Cubs were able to get the conclusion of the game then. There was a short rain delay over at the friendly confines, and they were finally able to get the game completed, and they come away with a victory.
A sweep.
They come away with a victory, so that was very good. But as I was driving in, Marvelous, and I'm sure you experienced it as well, the rains were coming down.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah.
They had a rain delay of 1 hour and 2 minutes, I believe. And they were able to complete the game with the funky second base runner in the extra innings.
Yeah, I'm still not used to or comfortable with that.
Well, I know on the radio, Pat Hughes was struggling with how to do a scorebook.
Well, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are struggling on how to, I guess do their scorecard because it's just different. Sure. There's no question about it. And for baseball purists out there, you want things to remain, normal and want things to remain the same. But unfortunately, everything is affected by this pandemic, this COVID-19. But I do have to say this, man. The rain was coming down. Now, I went to church today. I'm a practicing Catholic, and I went over to St. Joseph the Worker. We stream on Facebook and YouTube. So if you're a Catholic and you miss Mass, you want to go to St. Joseph the Worker in Wheeling or the YouTube page or the Facebook page, you certainly can check out today's Mass. But went out to breakfast with the family and everything over at Granny's in there, over in Wheeling. And then, I went home and started preparing for the show and making calls and doing everything, getting ready for the show. So I'm sitting out on the deck, and I got the computer going. I got my phone. I got everything, placed and got my tea and everything. Sun was shining, and suddenly it started to sprinkle. So I take all of my belongings inside, and then lo and behold, the sun came back out. And I'm sitting out there enjoying everything. White Sox, congratulations to the White Sox with the sweep over the Kansas City Royals this weekend. Great performance by the boys. And I tell you, those bats are coming alive. They are hot, and they are coming alive. Yeah. But suddenly the clouds opened up, and the rain came down, man. It's just flood. Now, marvelous. Here's the disappointing thing. Here's the bad thing. When I'm driving home from breakfast at Granny's over there in Wheeling, I got the sunroof up because it's hot and the sun is out. Hey, it's Sunday, nice and easy, getting ready. I'm pumped up. I'm all good.
Easy like Sunday morning.
Easy like Sunday morning. Well, that was only for a short spell because the rain spell came in. I parked the car outside on the street. Normally I put it in the garage. I had it on the street there, Marvelous, with the sunroof open. The rain came down.
I know the punchline. And
I forgot, silly me. I'm so, and I'm just enjoying the beautiful weather. And of course the rain came down. So I'm panicking, getting on my computer and everything in the house. I forget that the sunroof is open. So I get ready to leave. I go, oh my God, it's coming down in buckets. I go, oh my God, my sunroof is open. My daughter goes, I love her to death. My daughter's sitting there. She goes, oh yeah, I saw the sunroof open. I go, what? I go, are you kidding me? I go, I love you. Teresa, you're the best. I love you. I go, but when you see something, you got to say something. She goes, well, I went to sleep. Hey.
You probably need an interior car wash anyway.
Well, thank goodness I got the leather interior and I got the cloth and everything, so I wiped everything down and it was all good. But she went to sleep. I go, hey, Teresa, come on now. If it's your car, I guarantee you would have ran. She said, well, hey, it's not a big deal to me. But, yeah. So we made it in. We're all good. Talk about we made it in, and we're all good. It's good to see her lovely, her talented, her beautiful face, and I think she might have a little bit an extra edge for the show. But ladies and gentlemen, she's in studio. She's the one. She's the only. You love her. She's the fabulous Lauren Cox. What's up, Lauren? How are you?
I'm good. It was a rainy drive in, that's for sure. It was like flooding downtown. So I'm like,
really?
Why is it this much flooding for not that much rain? It was bizarre.
No, it was a lot of rain.
Well, yeah, but
yeah, it was a lot of rain.
Yeah, it came down.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's been raining all day.
Yeah. I thought I needed a canoe to clean out my car.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah. But the good thing is the lawn got watered.
And the flowers and
everything got watered. And they say this upcoming week the temperatures are going to be pleasant in the lower to mid 70s.
Okay.
With some rain. So, that's good, Marvelous. But how you doing, Lauren?
Good. Staying corona free.
Yeah.
Happy that sports are back, and it's just so much going on with sports.
Yeah, certainly a lot just going on.
It's about time.
It is about time because it's just comfortable and it's really, really cool just to sit back and watch a Cub game, watch a Sox game, watch the NBA games unfold.
Yeah.
Even a little bit of the WNBA, but it's just.
Why are you always so shady towards the WNBA? Why do you do that?
I'm not a big fan.
Just don't even say that.
Why?
We don't even want to hear you say that you're not a big fan. No.
Wait a minute.
We're getting behind the
Lauren,
WNBA.
you know our motto: real sports, real talk, just plain real. And we're being real here.
Those girls can play. Did you see one of the players got into it with Andre Iguodala? Did you see that?
I did not see that.
Yeah.
Paint a picture for us, Lauren Cox.
Basically, he said 23 was nice as opposed to her name, and her name was Powers, I believe, and she just went off on him basically and said, I got a name and this is why we're not respected at the WNBA, and I'm paraphrasing a bit, but anyway, they started to put Andre's past posts where he said he didn't want his daughter playing for the WNBA because he didn't want her to be a lesbian. Ooh. So why
would he say something like that?
Good question. Keep it real sports. Why would he say something?
773-763 WCPT. If you got an answer,
Yeah, he said that. So then, they brought that back up, and he couldn't win that battle after that.
Can you pull up that on your computer there, Marvelous One? So Andre Iguodala said, I don't want my daughter playing in the WNBA because there's too many lesbians.
And he doesn't want her to be a lesbian. Yeah. That's what he said.
Wow.
Okay. Very interesting.
That's very, very interesting, especially with everything that's going on as far as equality and social injustice and systemic racism, and everything that the NBA and WNBA have done. Adam Silver is doing a fabulous job of trying to bring unity together.
Yes.
And it's really interesting that a player is speaking out against a fellow, and I use the word loosely, but somewhat of a colleague, a partner in this big brand as far as the NBA is concerned. Because the NBA and Adam Silver is really the changes that they've made over the past year, especially prior to the pandemic, is phenomenal regarding elevating the WNBA to a more respectable league and equality for the women and the players.
Yes.
And then as far as pay is concerned, as far as paternity leave is concerned, I mean, the NBA and Adam Silver has done a fantastic job of trying to bridge the gap even before the pandemic. So you would expect and think at the end of the day, and I understand Andre Iguodala's position and his concern But sometimes you just keep things to yourself, okay? You just keep things to yourself.
Say it again.
And it's a matter of you working together to build a brand. Because at the end of the day, it is a livelihood for these women.
Yes.
Just like it is for the men. It's a livelihood. And despite how you may feel about it, you've got to I would imagine you would have to respect it and support it.
Yeah.
Even if you don't necessarily agree with it. Because at the end of the day, again, it's a matter of these.
Why would you agree with it?
Because he doesn't. There are people.
Well, no, I'm not saying him. I thought you were saying in terms of the WNBA.
Yeah, he's made that comment in 2016. Is what I'm finding. The comment it was a while ago. And at the time he had a 6-year-old daughter, and he tried to clarify it a bit by it's a 4-year-old quote. That's why I couldn't find it right away.
No,
So this is what it was. Former Spartan, current WNBA star Ariel Powers to Andre Iguodala. Put some respect on my name. Because he tweeted, number 23 from the Mystics is nice. She told him, that was the tweet that he tweeted out. Ariel responded and said, put some respect on my name or keep this tweet to yourself. And then,
but what was so?
Well, the WNBA, they are.
She had an attitude.
But they're just tired of being disrespected.
But you just said number 23 is pretty good.
But they said she was saying that if it was male sports, they would have known his name.
That's not true. That's not true.
That's how she felt.
Well, I think she needs
and I think his past has a lot to do with it.
It may have a lot to do with it, but I think, here's the thing. Regardless of whatever profession you're in.
Honestly, but that's what it is. It's the past. Like, he's got a history of saying inappropriate, foul stuff. So then when he tweeted that out, what you think now? Oh, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. No, he's got a history of saying foul stuff. He fouled.
But it's
that's why she called him out.
No, she's got to relax. She's got to relax. In my opinion, because Lauren, you were talking about
was wrong.
Was it?
Yeah, that was wrong.
He just said
No, I'm saying his previous comments
from 4 years ago.
Marvelous.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Still said it
from 4 years ago. I mean, obviously that comment was no good. But number 23 is nice of the Mystics. I mean. It's like he doesn't know her name, I guess, is the point, that he's disrespecting her. But I obviously had no respect for the players to begin with 4 years ago, so nothing's changed.
Yeah, here's the deal. I don't know. I don't care if you're talking about the players in the NBA, if you're talking about players in the playground. And a lot of people, and you can look at the ratings as far as the WNBA is concerned. Not too many people pay too much attention to the WNBA. 4 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago, not many people paid much attention to the WNBA because the word on the street really is the fact that a lot of people don't want to, after you're watching the most elite athletes in the world playing above the rim, when you talk about the NBA, most people on the street, when you ask them, don't want to see a bunch of women running around playing below the rim. Mm-hmm. That's the perspective, and that's the truth on the streets, and you know this.
But
this. Nobody wants to see a woman running up and down this court.
Do your daughters play basketball?
No, they did not.
Okay, mine did, so I have a little different perspective, I guess, because I thought, it was, you don't see, the post play and everything else that you see in the men's game, but
yeah.
I got to enjoy it, obviously, following my daughter, so I have a little bit more appreciation, maybe.
Listen, I love women's sports. I at one time said my daughters were in gymnastics, right? Since they were like, little girls, 6 years old. They love it. I knew about gymnastics, but not as much as I knew about, the main sports. Basketball, football, whatever. But I learned to love the sport because they were involved. Basketball, I respect women in anything they do. I say, hey, listen, I wish that if I come back in my second life, that I could be a 12-year-old girl, the gymnast. Because the things that they do, it's phenomenal. It's unbelievable. And somebody said, Jerry, why would you want to come back to be a 12-year-old boy? I go, because women gymnasts, and to me, it's speechless what they're capable of doing. And Simone Biles, God bless her.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you would have seen all that.
She's an alien.
And you would have seen all that in Tokyo under other circumstances.
Simone Biles she's an alien.
Yeah.
I can't even comprehend how she's able to do what she's capable of doing in such a controlled manner. It's listen, I love Michael Jordan. Everyone knows that. Simone Biles, in my opinion, as an athlete, she's got him beat.
I said
she's got him beat. She is unbelievable. So I said, hey, you know what? If I come back in my second life, I want to be a 12-year-old girl and be able to not a 12-year-old girl, a 12-year-old female gymnast.
Yeah, but then you'll have to go through the teen years.
No, I just marvelous. I just want to be a gymnast. I want to be a 12-year-old female gymnast because the things that the women do, and no offense to the male gymnasts, they're phenomenal in what they do as well. The pommel horse and the rings. I mean, my arms are big as they are, without doing that. Just imagine, Laura, if I was really doing it.
Oh my God.
But female gymnasts, they're unbelievable athletes. I dated a basketball player back in my younger years, and I respect women playing basketball because it's a skill set that is, to reach that level, you have to be very, very good and very, very talented. But as far as mainstream America is concerned, and on the playgrounds, most people don't want to see women at the highest level. They don't want to watch them play basketball because most guys say, hey, I can do half the things that they're doing, which isn't true, but that's the perception.
No, that's ridiculous. You guys have to, people are starting to tune in more, and the NBA is definitely understanding their part. You see a lot of the players had on the orange shirts, orange shirts, bringing awareness to the WNBA, and you have your new stars that are coming along. I definitely think that. But
most people don't even know who the stars are in the WNBA.
Well,
really, marvelous.
Deladon.
Everybody knows.
Deladon.
Yeah,
is well known, I think.
Yeah, that's one.
And she's out. Sabrina's out for.
Griner is known too, I think, among others. But
that's the point. That's the point.
So you don't think it's starting to get more interest?
No.
Oh, come on, Jerry.
I'm just being honest.
Yes, we're talking about it. Hey, we talk about it every week, whether you want to or not. So I think we are starting to get more.
Nobody.
Yeah, we're talking. Hey.
Listen, I'm glad you brought it up.
Yes, I will continue to bring it up.
Well, just take it easy. Just take it easy.
See?
But as far as your perspective on, let's go to the men now. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm. Let's go.
Marvelous.
Yes.
Let's talk about the men. No offense to the women.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
I love women. I think you guys are fantastic.
I'm sure you do.
I'll tell you what the NBA as it is this week looks to me like the Proviso West Holiday Tournament or something, all on one site, which is kind of with no fans. And so it's not the same thing, obviously. And what they've done is they have the standings as it was, and each team's going to play about 8 games. It's not going to change the standings much. It's still going to Milwaukee, Boston, Toronto, LA, Clippers, Lakers at the end of it. So, they're doing the best they can with an impossible situation in all the sports, actually. I say, it'll be amazing if any of them get to the conclusion. But the ones in a bubble have a better chance. It looks like baseball made a mistake by not doing the Florida-Arizona plan. Where they would have been all in one place.
Yep.
In the spring training sites.
Right. But the sidebar to that, the one reason why they didn't do it is the fact that these players are going to be tied up in Arizona, and we see exactly what's happening with the numbers as far as COVID is concerned in Arizona. They're shooting out the roof.
Florida's where the NBA and WNBA is. So
they're in a bubble though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They could do a bubble in Arizona and Florida.
Well, I don't know how they, and that's not the problem. The bubble is really not the problem. It's what these players, and it's suspect in the first place as far as baseball is concerned, because you go home, and who knows whoever you come in contact with, whether it's your wife, your
blaming
girlfriend.
on the Marlins. They're
Right.
like, the Marlins are destroying the whole season.
That's the thing. In Arizona, actually, the spring training sites, if they went to their own sites, they're all in Phoenix, Scottsdale, whatever. It's all pretty close. So that would have worked. Florida would have been a bigger problem because the Florida spring training sites are more spread out.
Right.
All the way from the East Coast, Miami, to West Coast, Tampa. So that wouldn't have worked as well. But it looks as though this is, the travel is the problem. I mean, they contaminated the Philadelphia clubhouse, so nobody can play there for a week, and it's already a big mess.
So Rob Manfred, the commissioner from Major League Baseball, issued a comment or a statement last either Thursday or Friday and said, if these numbers continue to escalate tomorrow, meaning Monday, he's going to shut everything down.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs are supposed to play in St. Louis next weekend. They're already talking about that being in jeopardy because the Cardinals have some COVID.
And I think that everyone should have listened to Buster Olney, right? He said, hey, listen, it has a 5% chance of starting, 0% chance of concluding. And it seems like he's accurate because a week, what is it, a week and a half, 2 weeks now?
Yeah, a week ago Friday. Thursday.
A little over a week.
Yeah, and so it's getting out of hand. And the unfortunate thing about this is the fact that you're asking 20-something-year-old, well-paid athletes to abide by rules.
What's the one that didn't show up today?
Well, I mean, Kane is Milwaukee's quit.
Cespedes. Yeah, Cespedes.
Yeah, he just said, I'm not coming back.
Right, exactly. And that's the problem, is the fact that you don't know what these players are doing. Well, I mean...
And then they released a statement, we can't find them?
Right,
I'm
exactly.
like, are you kidding me?
Exactly. But the point of the matter is the fact that you can't control these players when they leave the ballpark.
No,
that's the problem.
Why they can't leave.
And that's the difference with the NBA is the fact that they're in a bubble and they can't leave. So you have some type of control as far as their movement with these ball players, and hence you see why the numbers are escalating and spiking. Yeah. Hence the Marlins and spreading around the league is the fact that these players, you tell them what to do when they get to the ballpark and how they conduct themselves inside the ballpark during the game. And they're not even following protocol as far as the games are concerned.
That's what I was going to say. They said Manfred basically was blaming them and telling them to stop spitting and this and that. And I'm like, that's your solution to this?
Well, that's part of it. I think Ian Happ with the Cubs said, hey, one way that we can control this, and it's what our great mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, and, of course, the governor said, put the mask on. We got the Rewind Sports 60 mask for you. Just check it out. We'll send it out to you. But the point is, Ian Happ said, hey, you know what? Wear your mask. Practice the social distancing as best as you possibly can, and do what you're expected. Wash your hands in the whole 9 yards. Stop spitting. But after he made that statement, you've seen some of the players around the league in the field with a mask on. Mm-hmm. I think there are a couple of Pittsburgh Pirate players with their mask on. There's some other players around the league wearing their mask or whatever because they simply just don't know. But many of these players they figure, hey, we're in our comfort zone as far as playing, in the ballpark, and so it's business as usual.
Oh boy!
There was one network, the Marquee Network. They showed Anthony Rizzo when he came back. They showed a close-up of him, and they showed him spitting.
Yeah.
And I pointed to the television. I'm like, he's not supposed to be doing that.
I mean, at home plate, you got the catcher, the umpire, and the batter, for example. That's really close contact, I'd say. And then the players at the bases and whatnot. But there was one time that I think the bubble didn't work, and that was for Lou Williams, but we won't get
Yep, we got a report. The stripper Aries said she did get a dance. She gave a dance.
He got a dance?
Yep.
Lou Williams in the house. He got a left dance.
She said he was an excellent tipper, too. Ridiculous. Really ridiculous.
We don't condone that type of behavior here in the Rewind Sports 60. But, hey, look, I told you this. And Stephen A. Smith said the same thing. There's no way. And I love my brothers. But in the NBA, them cats, they're not staying. No, it's not happening.
So good.
Hey, Lauren, there's two things they're going to be doing. One way, somehow, they're going to be smoking the weed. They're going to do it. And they're going to find them a little extracurricular activity.
Okay.
Some way, somehow, they're going to do it. You can't expect them to be locked up for 2-3 months and say, hey,
funny.
You can't have no women and you can't smoke. You can't smoke that stuff.
2 months, almost.
Yeah.
It's not 3.
Listen,
well, if they go
to the championship.
A few people.
Hey, Lauren.
A few people.
Lauren, I'm here
He
to
should know better.
Listen, Lauren, I'm here to tell you.
He's not 22.
Lauren, I'm here to
He's very much so needed,
Listen.
and he should be ashamed
Lauren,
of himself. And
Lauren, I'm here to
that's all
tell
it
you.
is to it.
I don't know how big your purse string. I don't know how much you got in your bank account.
Mhm.
I don't know any of that. It don't matter. Let me tell you something. You got a young man, 20s, 30s.
More music, young man.
With a lot of.
He's 33.
Hey, even those young men. Come on now. Hey, with a lot of free time, a lot of money, and nothing to do. Hey.
It's gonna be a problem.
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a problem, and may he rest in peace, John Lewis. It could be a good problem for some. Hey, but
not for the Clippers.
Let me tell you something.
Do you think that
Yes.
Paul George
Yes.
and Kawhi are upset? Like, I'll be mad.
They should be mad, but I think they understand too.
Okay.
Hey man, you gotta slow down. We're trying to win a championship. Hey man, I had to go get that lap dance. I had to.
No.
Lauren. No. See, everybody's missing the point. Here's the point, Lauren.
I hear you.
What the hell is a strip club doing open in the first place during a pandemic? Hello?
It's more
That's
important.
in
Than,
Atlanta.
it's more
They
important than a church. Come on.
Are you sure?
Yes.
That's the question I said, wait a minute. Why is there a strip club open in the first place?
See?
I didn't see, but Lou Williams did. If you
That's
want
where Cespedes was in Atlanta. I'm like, maybe he got in trouble too. Weren't they in Atlanta
Hey,
when he disappeared?
you
This is
disappeared,
not
all right.
good.
She's Lauren Cox. He's the marvelous one, Dan Marver. It's Jerry Riles. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation with a special guest on tap, and unfortunately, he's unavailable for us, but no worries. We keep rolling. We want you to roll with us. Our number here is 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. More in the world of sports coming up right after this short time.
You're watching the Rewind Sports 60. Go Bucks! Woo!
It's the end of the quarter. Time for a break in the action. The hottest sports panel in Chicago will get back to the fast-paced action, streaming live on Facebook Live. We're back at it after this quick timeout. So don't you dare touch that iPhone, Android, iPad, Mac, or PC. Lock it in.
Relax. Reset. Rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
If it's Chicago sports you want, you're in the right place.
Hello, Chicago!
The Rewind Sports 60.
That's the best in the city of Chicago.
Welcome back to the Rewind Sports 60 live with the best sports panel in Chicago. Lock it in.
Please welcome Matt Dumba.
I'd like to say thank you to all the fans watching at home and all the people making a positive difference in our world right now. We appreciate you. I know none of us need to be reminded about how our day-to-day lives have been affected by the outbreak of COVID-19. So I hope the Stanley Cup playoffs can bring a little normality and peace of mind during all these times of uncertainty. I'll transition topics to a topic that is very important to me, my fellow members of the Hockey Diversity Alliance, and the NHL. During this pandemic, something unexpected but long overdue occurred. The world woke up to the existence of systematic racism and how deeply rooted it is within our society. For those unaffected by systematic racism or unaware, I'm sure that some of you believe that this topic has garnered too much attention during the last couple months. But let me assure you, it is not. Racism is a man-made creation, and all it does is deteriorate from our collective prosperity. Racism is everywhere. Racism is everywhere. And we need to fight against it. On behalf of the NHL and the Hockey Diversity Alliance, we vow and promise to stand up for justice and fight for what is right. I know firsthand, as a minority playing the great game of hockey, the unexplainable and difficult challenges that come with it. The Hockey Diversity Alliance and the NHL want kids to feel safe, comfortable, and free-minded every time they enter an arena. So I stand in front of you today on behalf of those groups and promise you that we will fight against justice. We will fight against injustice and fight for what is right. I hope this inspires a new generation of hockey players and hockey fans, because Black Lives Matter. Breonna Taylor's life matters. Hockey is a great game, but it could be a whole lot greater, and it starts with all of us.
Wow. Wow, Lauren. That was Minnesota's Matt Dumba on Saturday. He became the first NHL player to kneel to the U.S. national anthem when he did so before the opening playoff game between the Oilers and the Blackhawks in Edmonton, Alberta. Dumba knelt at center ice while fellow Black players Malcolm Subban of Chicago and Darnell Nurse of Edmonton each stood with a hand on one of his shoulders. Several teams this week stood together during the U.S. and Canadian anthems, with some players locking arms to show solidarity. With the message "End Racism" on the video screens around them, the Wild defenseman made a passionate speech about racial injustice on behalf of the league and the Hockey Diversity Alliance. Welcome back to the Rewind Sports 60. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, along with the marvelous one, Dan Marver, and the lovely, talented, outstanding Lauren Cox. I got to get your reaction, Lauren. And, of course, marvelous, but Lauren, your reaction once you heard the speech.
Well, the speech, I wasn't that touch moved and inspired by it. He said a couple of justices where it was supposed to be injustice, and I'm like, ooh, yeah. But the overarching issue is on July 31st, before this, Eric Trump praised the NHL players for not kneeling during the anthem. So they're already politicizing this. So, I guess NHL decided, let's scramble and do something. And so, they have Dumba come. I know he's a part of the Diversity Council, which, it's only about 4 people on there. And I feel like we need the right people delivering these messages.
So you feel he was the wrong person?
I want to feel it.
Why was he the wrong person?
Because he was stumbling. He said it was injustice, and he said justice.
I mean, that was he made
because he's reading something, and I don't feel his heart and soul in it.
Really?
And he is white and Filipino.
Right.
Where was the black person to say it, or at least a white person
next
saying
to him?
Subban.
Yeah. And he should have been talking. Somebody who could have really conveyed this message to that audience that needs to hear it, because, NHL and their diversity has always been a question, at least.
Okay. Marvelous.
Well, obviously it's not like the NBA in terms of the number of black players that participate in the sport. I thought that it was not shocking that Dumba spoke. I thought that his remarks were okay and and whatnot, and he's certainly, again, First Amendment right to do whatever you want. But I think the NHL felt that that was the appropriate thing to do under all the circumstances. Fight against injustice, okay. Recognize injustice, racism. I've always said We talked about solutions. You talked about a solution for the shootings in Chicago. What is the solution? I've actually offered legislative solutions to different things, but what is the solution? Because in people's minds, no matter what you do, there's still going to be bias. I mean, there's no way you can get rid of a bias in a person's head, unfortunately. But obviously, you don't want police killing people either.
No, I think you can get away from a bias, and a lot of times I think it comes from a personal experience. I know that there have been stories over the years where there have been neo-Nazis or skinheads, that hated, anyone that wasn't like them. They had an experience or an encounter with a minority or a black person, and it kind of opened up their eyes to a whole new different world. I'll give you a movie to look. American History X. American History X. With, what's his name? Norton?
Ed?
Yeah. Edward Norton?
Yeah.
American History X. If you haven't seen that movie, go out and get it. Get it on Netflix. Get it. Whatever you have to do. Watch American History X. It's a fantastic movie. It's on Hulu. Thank you, Devin Tingle, for that. It's on Hulu. If you haven't seen that movie, watch that movie. And that character, his perspective on life changed because he had a personal experience. He went from one end of the spectrum as far as hate to the other end of the spectrum as far as caring and loving his fellow man.
Absolutely.
But because he had a personal experience, which changed his bias completely. But go out and get American History X. Oh my God, what a movie. It's a fantastic movie. I think, Lauren, I agree with you that, you want something to be from the heart. You want the real passion to come from it, regardless of whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
In this situation, Black Lives Matter. You want someone who's going to express it.
Black Lives Matter.
Well,
I have to
he's a
disagree
minority.
with Dan because I think a conversation can change people's mindsets. I've seen it happen.
Oh, yeah.
So that's why I really feel that they need to have the right people conveying this message, because they had an audience. If it was a message delivered in a different way by a different person, maybe that could have opened up the door for some people. People were, we're so happy that he said it, and this was such a great moment. But did it really land a certain way?
Well, here's the deal. It's hard for you and I to answer that question because we are minorities. We're the reason part of the reason this movement is at the heights that it is, because of what's happened to us personally as African American men and women, but also to the African American, the black race, over 400 years of oppression. So we see it, feel it, and experience it differently. But for those such as Dan Marver and Devin Tingle, who are not minorities or black, they see it through a different lens.
Oh, sure.
Here's the surprising thing. We talk about Juneteenth. You and I, we grew up knowing about Juneteenth. Mm-hmm. But once it was brought to the mainstream America, there were many people who are not African American or black who had no idea about Juneteenth.
Absolutely.
So his message, even though for us as minorities, we kind of like, okay, thank you so much. But for the audience, which is primarily white and foreign, right? Now I'm going to say primarily white and foreign. Those were words that needed to be said and heard to be that eye-opener, so to speak. Marvelous,
couple points. You can't see it visually, but I am a minority. Number two, you have to remember that the majority of players that play in the NHL are from Canada. That's another big difference. So...
No, but I mean, as being, you're Jewish. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Right? You're not African American or a person of color. Mm-hmm. You've experienced some sort of racism or some sort of prejudice. But if you're walking down the street with Lauren and I, you're not going to be mistaken as being a minority.
Yeah, clearly. But
until you express or share
Right.
That.
Mhm.
And that's the big difference. But being non-black, brown, when you heard the message, did it enlighten you in any way? Did it touch you in any way?
The NHL, this message we're talking about?
Yes.
No, it didn't. I mean, I didn't find it compelling. I mean, I found. I mean, Kaepernick would be more compelling, for example.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, so they have that. But on the other, but I think that it was. I don't know. It might have been that the NHL. And it was behind this. I mean, I mean, whether he's a good actor or not, his voice sort of trembled a little bit. So I mean, I guess
he's nervous.
Right.
Yeah, he's nervous.
He was mixing up
Here's the
justice
deal.
with injustice. It's like,
Yeah.
come on. And he did like two. It wasn't that, I'm not nitpicking, but I'm saying you could tell he was reading a statement versus a black person has really experienced that, which
Right.
probably was
Right.
Malcolm Subane right next to
Right.
him, you know?
Right.
So that kind of threw me off.
I've been told that there are, however, some physical features that do identify Jewish people.
Yeah, there certainly are. We understand that. But here's the deal. I think that because of the audience, again, Lauren, and because of the league, this was something that's unprecedented for, a minority to speak out.
And kneel. I didn't. When you first sent me the clip, I didn't know that he kneeled, and so when I saw him kneeling, I said, I definitely respect that, but my issue still stands in terms of they should have had a black person.
I'm glad that he did it.
That
I'm glad that he did it. I'm glad that the NHL is on the forefront as far as making change and bringing more equality.
Are they really, or is this just what everybody's doing now?
What kind of change?
That's the great question. That's the great
Why
question.
they throw him up there with that speech that they gave him? It's like
they had to do something.
I mean,
so you're saying he was a token representative of the National Hockey League? Is that what you're saying?
No, I didn't say that. I just said
I thought of that.
Or somebody else.
I thought of that.
Well, here's the thing.
It didn't touch Dan, so we ain't do a good job.
Well,
I mean, that particular one, there are others, but not him.
Yeah, let's go out to our phone lines. Tommy calling from Chicago is joining us on the Rewind Sports 60. Tommy, how are you, man? Are you there?
First of all, yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me, sir?
There you go.
Can you hear me?
What's going on, Tommy? How are you?
Okay. Very quickly, I tune in to you guys now because I really enjoy the satire between the three of you and the chemistry and also the information about sports. But let's be clear about one thing. There are certain conversations that we should not even embark on or get into because it's a broken record. Ever had that song that you liked very well until it got to that same point and then it just got stuck? So what difference does it make if you kneel and when you stand up, it's still the same thing? The bottom line to where we are right now is simple. We're in a world health crisis. And that alone would bring morality back to the conscious mind of any hater to recognize and understand that, well, wait a minute, I hate this color so bad. But guess what? I can die from the same thing, too. So my point on all of this is pretty simple. You want to stop all this stuff? Cut it out. That's all you got to do. But the reason why you won't cut it out is because then you have to repair what you've done. And so one last thing. I was watching the Lakers and the Raptors, and really, guys, I don't know how long it's going to take me to get used to all of this, man. But I'm just like really? I mean, it's like the whole camaraderie of the game where the people could spur the underdog on or give that team that was down that spark to come back and stuff. It's just like now, man. It's just like watching some guys play pickup ball in a gym, except for they're all neatly dressed in NBA uniforms.
Yeah, I don't mind that.
But I love you guys.
Hey, real quick before you go, Tommy, thank you so much. We appreciate you and we love you too. Real quick before you go, you're a lifelong Chicagoan. What side of town you grew up on?
I grew up on the south side.
Okay, south side. So one of the most famous playgrounds in Chicago basketball history is Cole Park. All the basketball legends, they played at Cole Park because that's where you go to showcase your talents. And you say, hey, man, I can hang with the boys. You know how many people would stand at Cole Park all day long and watch the Hoopers come and go, come and go, come and go. That's what we're watching with this NBA hub down in Orlando. They don't have people in the stands. They got the virtual screen or whatever, but Basketball fans are watching these hoopers because they're the best in the world. And so I would hope that you would embrace that from a pure basketball standpoint.
Wait. Let me try to help you out.
Yes, sir.
On the west side there was a little gymnasium called the Boys Club,
Mm-hmm.
where all the elites went all throughout the city, Southwest. If you were a baller, you know where all these places were. There's one right over behind the Museum of Science and Industry where they all went.
Right.
But let me just try to be clear about one thing. People are dying, and maybe we just need to pause for a moment and straighten that out. We seem to believe and think we can just go on about our lives, and then come up with a new narrative. Well, this is the new this is the new that. The whole camaraderie of sports, as you said, was the ability to go and watch these guys. When I see them now, I see all of these slogans and I see all of this stuff, and I say to myself, man, really? Seriously, guys? If we want to stop what's going on, then first of all, you have to do what Michael Jackson said and be the person that looks in the mirror. And second of all, you have to recognize and understand and stop lying to yourself and try to act like because you're not black that you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And again, I love you guys, and I tune in every Sunday, and thank you for letting me get that out.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, and don't be a stranger, but you certainly are.
I was going to ask Tommy did you understand the cut it out part? I kind of couldn't follow that.
Yeah, I mean, he cut it out means stop it.
Stop what?
Stop the. Well, I think he's saying stop trying to put, and no pun intended, but stop trying to put a mask on something that, you're covering up the reality of life, of where we are today. Mm-hmm. So I think with the NBA, I think with sports in general, we're trying to get back to our normal way of life. And by starting these games up, and we see how they're falling to the wayside, it's similar to putting a mask on to pretend that there's nothing real happening in this world. And I think that's what he means, say, hey, cut it out.
A distraction, maybe?
It's a distraction. So he said, hey, stop it. Let's address the issue. If I have a broken arm,
stop the games. I mean,
yeah. I mean, he wants to stop everything and say, hey, let's focus on life and get past this thing before we get back to fun and games, more or less. In my opinion, the way I interpret it. Okay. Is that what you see?
Well, absolutely. And the whole thing is money. This is what this is all about. Yeah. They're not, the sports bring everybody together. Right. No, it's economics.
It doesn't matter how many people in the stands, it's the TV.
And the advertising.
Right, exactly.
So, I mean, that's all it is. And, I do definitely agree in terms of we definitely need to stay focused. We got to stay focused.
The problem is, he said cut it out. And like Michael Jackson, the man in the mirror, I think the big problem is, at the end of the day, it's fear. I think it's a human nature. It's fear of the unknown. And that's where we are. And that's why some people embrace it and they accept it and they welcome it. Other people, they try to run and scatter from it because fear is a powerful emotion, and it could be manipulated and manipulate people. And I think that's where we are. And that's why we're distracted and scrambling because of fear. Lauren, we didn't get to the three keys.
Yes.
You got it real quick?
Well, I mean, we talked about basically most of it, the NFL. A bunch of players, a half dozen of the Patriots basically are opting out. Eddie Goldman, Bears defense, essentially,
yes,
opted out as well. So eager to see how all of this is going to unfold with the NFL. But we see what's happening with the NBA.
We'll get it more next week. My apologies. Marvelous.
Yeah, I just wanted to remind everybody, don't go to high school football games in 4 weeks. They're not going to play till March.
Yeah, they'll be in March. Thanks to Devin Tingle, our producer, outstanding producer. Thanks to both of you, and thanks to our callers. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation. It is the Rewind Sports 60.
Relax, reset, rejuvenate. Go to our link right now to restart your life. TheRewindSports60.com. What are you waiting for? Hope to see you soon. The Rewind Sports 60.
He is my man. He's Craig Hodges on our hotline. Craig, how are you? Welcome to the Rewind Sports 60, my man.
I appreciate you, brother. Peace and blessings to you and your listening audience during this crazy time, man. Hope all is well.
Thank you so very much. And I think everybody is trying to stay as safe and well as they possibly can. This is the fastest hour in sports conversation, Craig. You and I have talked many times in the past few years. We don't have much time to talk about so much that's going on, but we appreciate you taking your time on the Mother's Day to join us on our show to talk Last Dance, man. And I mean, I believe you've been making your media rounds the past couple of days or whatever regarding your comment that you made. And I got to tell you this. I actually agree with what you said regarding Michael Jordan's comment, I think in episode 3, about the cocaine circus. Because when I heard Michael Jordan, he came into the league and he said he went to the hotel, he was in a hotel when he went to knock on one of the players' door and he heard all this commotion going on and half the team was in there partying. I looked over to my wife and I said, Lise, why is he throwing all these guys under the bus? I swear to you, I said, why is he throwing them under the bus? I go, I mean, this is how many years ago, but you ain't got to call these cats out and tell everybody what they're doing. I kind of agree with you on that, man.
Yeah, and for me, it's one of those things where, you have young people excited about the game and family members of people probably looking forward to watching their loved one who played with Michael, watching this, looking forward to watching his documentary, and then it winds up being, as opposed to it being an entertainment, it turns out to be something that's an inquisition of the uncle or dad who played on the team with MJ. So, it was kind of, I thought he could have did something a little more diplomatic. I thought he could have said players that they during that period of time had a lot of fun and, but they came and played hard. It was a way of doing it that he didn't have to throw people under the bus, man.
Yeah, well, they left a lot of tape on the floor. I mean, this is what are we just saying? There's a lot of stuff that didn't make it to this docuseries, but I was just surprised. But what I do like the fact that Mike is doing in this docuseries, in my opinion, from a spectator's perspective, I think that he's being real. I think that he's, opening up himself to something that he normally hadn't done over the years, so I like that side of Michael to show people, hey, I'm just as real as, any of you guys. I just happen to be this guy that's very talented and had the success. So I do like that aspect of what he's presenting and unveiling in this docuseries.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and like you say, to a degree, it's cool that you get some eye-opening facts and that kind of thing. But at the same time, I feel like at this point in his life and career, I don't, money isn't the issue. I just wonder what is the motivation behind how you throwing people under the bus, man, and just how, like you said, you knew some people aren't going to like you after it's over. I don't know if it's so much from your openness or if it's from you throwing people under the bus from your openness. So to me, it's just a matter of saying, at this point in time, it's a lot of other things that need to be taken care of. And I remind people that this is entertainment and that we have a lot of things going on within the world and within our communities that we have to, get solutions to. And that's where my mind is. So I'm watching it in somewhat a critique mode, but always with the eye of it being entertainment and commerce involved.
Hey, Craig, this is Dan Marver. I'm in the studio with Jerry. How you doing?
I'm doing fine.
Yeah, I loved your book, Long Shot, The Triumph and Struggles of an NBA Freedom Fighter. A lot of good stuff in there. Yeah. Including, of course, the famous White House visit and a number of other things. But I wanted to ask you, being a player and then looking at it, I ask everybody this, and 22 years later, I tell everybody, I just can't believe that it really happened, that they broke the team up. And the last dance you're going to see, it didn't matter if Jackson went 82-0, Krause said. How can that be? That doesn't make any sense to me.
And then for me, the way I'm looking at this thing is, dead man tells no tale, man. So when we look at how much he's been put on Jerry Krause as him being, being the person that did or whatever, and some of that I'm like, how can the general manager outweigh owner? So if the Bulls go 82-0, how could Jerry Riles break it up? That's what I'm looking at more than Jerry Krause.
Well, it's interesting because allegedly, Jerry said, Jerry Reinsdorf supported Jerry Krause, obviously, and said, most of these players, after winning the title, the second three-peat, were on their last leg. And he felt, that was probably the best time to dismantle and break things up because of the grind over, just winning one championship is a grind in its right. And to come back and win a second three-peat, he felt that most of the players on the team that, they didn't have enough left in the tank. So it wasn't a bad business move to make and breaking up the team.
Yeah, and I look at it. I understand where he's coming from. Try to get the best bang for your buck. Let's have a firehouse sale or whatever you want to call it. But for me, and looking at it, when you understand how to win, you understand how to win, and that you have enough veteran players who have enough left in the tank that you can start to shovel in guys to be able to maintain, the solidarity of a unit that can go out and win. And once again, he rolled the dice, he broke the team up, and haven't won anything since. So it's kudos to breaking up the squad, I guess.
So yeah, so Craig, I know that there was some feelings after you left the Bulls that you were blackballed. What was that all about?
Well, the fact that you can leave the game and be a world champion 2 times over, a consecutive 3-point title, won it 3 times in a row, and have that under your belt, and you're only 32 years of age, and no one would even talk to you. So for me, that was, and then with, Latex Wonder told me that, he had called every team on my behalf, and the only time in his career when teams didn't call him back to see the person, see what he was talking about as far as the player was concerned, and when he saw that, he told me it was time for me to start coaching.
It's interesting. 2-time NBA champion in 91-92, 3-time NBA three-point champion 90-92. Shot over almost 6,000 points, 563 percent from the field, 40% from three-point land. You were more or less the Colin Kaepernick of that era. And I know a little bit of history about, Craig Hodges and who you are as a person off the court. But do you think during that time that, and any time it's important, but do you think during that time when you made the statement, both physically in your attire going to the White House and verbally, because you approached Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson leading up to the championship to say, we need to make a stance. Did you ever think, hey, maybe I need to step back from this, evaluate it, and pick a different time to make my statement?
And that's the thing, man, is that to whom much is given, much is required. And when we get on the professional level, I think we've been blessed to be able to do what we can for less fortunate people, man. So for me, it was a no-brainer. And as far as, letting people know what's going on with the struggle of poor people of color. And that's what the letter was about. When I went to the White House, it wasn't about trying to embarrass anybody or trying to that the dashiki was a point of protest. That not at all. It was, this is the garment that I'm supposed to wear, the descendant of African people, when we go to our regal events, and that was the most important event I've ever went to in my life. And I wanted to make sure that at that time that I was going to be able to represent, that portion of our world that's not being, represented, man. And, being able to do it after winning the championship was a great thing. So for me, it was one of those things that had to be done. But at the same time, I realized afterwards that it was going to be some repercussions from it. And at the same time, it was going to be something that my family was going to have to struggle through. And at the point of time that I was doing it, I didn't consider that because I felt like my stats and everything else was well enough for me to get another job.
Yeah, you know what? It's interesting. We're on with the great Craig Hodges, former Chicago Bull basketball player, three-point shooting champion, homegrown product of Chicago. That's the one thing I think that many people, and maybe is that what shied some of the players or some of your teammates away from you, is the fact that, they may privately feel and agree with what you stand for, but to jeopardize their reputation and to jeopardize their livelihood, they say they probably step back and say, "Hey, man, you got to handle this on your own."
Right, and you look at that, and once again, the conversations that I would speak of publicly, players spoke of openly in the locker room and other places, but they wouldn't do it openly to the public. So it's one of those things that it happens, man. And for me, and looking back, I feel blessed to be able to have carried the mantle during that period of time of when it wasn't social media, it wasn't popular, it wasn't an event, so to speak. So it was one of those things that was necessary during that period of time so that, keep the movement going, man, until the next person or persons can pick it up. And that's where we are right now. Everybody has to pull their part, man.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, I hope that, young folks listening in and can learn a little bit more about who you are as a man and who we are as a people and start doing some good things, some smart things, and doing the right thing. Before we let you go, and we really appreciate you taking time out on this Mother's Day to join us, brother. We really appreciate you, and we support you 100%. My question, we had Bill Cartwright on, and we talked about the Last Dance and, of course, the feud between Michael Jordan and Isaiah Thomas. And I don't know if you heard me when we were talking. I said I believe one reason there's a grudge between Isaiah Thomas and Michael Jordan is the fact that Isaiah, we Chicagoans, man, we love this city, and a lot of us will die, because of what's going on. Isaiah Thomas grew up on the roughest part of the city, that of course the West Side, and Michael Jordan came in here and he became, the beloved figure. And I don't know, man, did Isaiah take a little bit of offense and say, "Hey, wait a minute, this is my town. I'm the basketball god in Chicago. I earned my stripes on the West Side, man. You can't come in here and gangster this town because this is my town, and I don't care if I'm in Detroit or not."
Yeah, Isaiah, it's one of those things where, like you said, Isaiah from the West Side, and then MJ being somewhat of a carpetbagger coming to take over the West Side, and the people in Chicago embraced MJ right off the plane, man. So it was one of those things where it was going to be a public rivalry for who has the most sentiment and who has the most love coming from Chicago. So I could see Isaiah being somewhat salty, but he had, in all honesty, he understood. I'm sure he understood the fact that, the rivalry between us and Detroit was so heated, and him being on the Detroit teams, that it was going to carry some weight with the Chicago fan and the Chicago populace. So he understands the rabid fans that Chicagoans are. So he just has to come in and get in when he fits in after his career is over, and I think the people of Chicago have accepted him back pretty well.
Yeah, we love Isaiah. We love Chicago, but the number one question is, the big question is, and we saw in the docuseries, and Michael's like, "Hey, it wasn't on me. Can you set the record straight? Why was not Isaiah Thomas not on the '92 Dream Team, in Craig Hodges' opinion?"
Right. In my opinion, it was just a matter of, the politics of the game at the time. MJ being who MJ was to the game and to commerce worldwide, that he was going to have somewhat of a say. Now, whether or not he said something or Magic or somebody else, that's that multi-millionaire circle that I wasn't in, man. So some of the conversations I wasn't privy to. But from the outside looking in, something was skewed against Isaiah when you look in terms of his body of work over his career. There's no reason that he shouldn't have been on that dream team, even to the point where I don't know how you can put Christian Laettner on there, even though that y'all want to put that little college vibration in there like we got amateurs still. This is a pro thing, man. Isaiah should have been on it.
Well, they put Christian Laettner on over, I believe, Shaquille O'Neal.
And even that, I'm just saying, it's some things that It is what it is, man. The politics of the game can be ugly sometimes, and when it gets skewed to a point where you can see obvious things go down, obvious to the point where Isaiah should have been on the team, obvious to the point where I should have been signed after we won 2 championships. So there are certain things in the politics of sport that are ugly, but if you look at it and see it for what it is, you can see through it.
Yeah, you certainly can.
Hey, Greg, what are you up to now? I see that your old school, Rich East, is closing down after this year.
Yeah, man. You know what's so crazy, man, is that my elementary school was torn down. My junior high school, they just tore down and getting ready to rebuild another one. My high school is now closed. I'm like, Long Beach, watch out, man. It's crazy, man. I don't understand it. And Park Ford, it's a crazy thing is Rich East is in the center of Park Ford. Yeah. And with it being gone, man, it's going to be something to see how, the community really reacts to that, man.
Yeah. Long Beach better look out, huh?
Yeah, that's what he said. Hey, Craig.
It's like, yes.
No, hey, it's the fastest hour in sports conversation, brother. We got to let you go, but we certainly don't want this to be the last time. And, of course, it won't be the last time. Any closing remarks before we say goodbye?
Well, I want to thank everybody for their support, and I have a documentary and a feature film coming out from the people who produced the show Black Mirror from Britain. So there's some good stuff coming up, man. I want to thank you for your support, and everybody be healthy and safe during this period of time, please.
Well, we didn't get a chance to talk about the NBA. Thank you so very much with this pandemic and everything, but we'll certainly invite you back real soon to catch up on some other things. Okay, Craig?
Peace.
Stay safe and well, brother. We appreciate you. Greg Hodges joining us on our TR60 hotline, and he said, hey, Isaiah should have been on the team. I still believe, Marvelous.
Yeah.
It's that Chicago thing coming out of Isaiah. But, hey, you know what? It is what it is, the politics involved, and, the last dance.
The Rewind Sports 60.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Sports Medicine Update. It's a weekly podcast. Yours truly, Jerry Riles, and the Honorable Dr. Chad Pedromas as your guest of honor. Doctor, how are you?
Jerry, the world is less happy than I'd like, but it's a little troubling, more than a little, but I feel good. I'm blessed to feel good. Thank you. How about you?
I'm doing fantastic. It was a breath of fresh air this past week, Dr. Pedromas, to actually get a chance to sit down and watch some Major League Baseball, some professional sports around the country. Obviously, here in Chicago, we got the Chicago Cubs and we got the White Sox on the south side, and it was very, very good and relaxing and refreshing again, and to get back to some sort of normalcy to watch both baseball teams play. And it seemed like they're back to their old ways of struggling to try to get to the mountaintop, so to speak. But after a week of professional sports and, of course, the NBA kicking things off leading up to this podcast and heading into the weekend, along with golf and the WNBA, all in all, it's pretty refreshing to get an opportunity to see some sort of sports and its normalcy. And let's just hope we can continue to push forward and overcome this pandemic that we're facing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And, it's funny. I watched a little of one of the games, baseball games, and it struck me how much I didn't miss the fact that there were no fans, just having the guys out there playing on TV. It's kind of calming, baseball. So I thought it worked.
No, it did work, and it was interesting. I love how the marketing professionals are being creative by putting the cardboard fans out there, whether it's behind home plate. I know in Boston, the Big Monster, they have the cardboard fans out there in left field. So it's pretty cool to see how creative these guys are getting. And I do believe the Cup game on Saturday last week on the Fox broadcast that they had the virtual fans out there in the stands, sort of like a video game. So it was pretty interesting as a viewer watching from home how collectively, these marketing directors across the country, across baseball, are trying to be innovative and creative and trying to keep the fans' attention watching these baseball games. But at the end of the day, it's what happens on the baseball diamond, what happens on the field. And the play has been pretty decent for the most part. I know we've had some issues early on regarding pitching. Some of the pitchers have disclosed that there have been some hurt arms. I think Clayton Kershaw with the Los Angeles Dodgers had to sit out for, a game or two. There have been other pitchers around the major league. But what do you chalk it up to regarding these arm injuries, or I don't even want to say fatigue, but, the discomfort with these pitchers and their arms?
Yeah, I have a pretty specific point of view on this, actually, and I think I might have said it on here before. I think it's part, and it hurts baseball even before the COVID in so many ways because there's injuries, you need to carry more pitchers, and then because the pitchers can't pitch as much, you're making 5 or 6 pitching changes in a game, which aggravates the worst thing about baseball, in my opinion, which is the length. So the games go on even longer. And I've maintained for a while that, and who knows if I'm right, that the act of pitching doesn't cause these injuries. Because, like we said before, going back to the Cubbies in the '60s, Bill Hands and Fergie Jenkins and Kenny Holtzman, all that stuff. Fergie Jenkins, 300 innings every year. So pitching by itself doesn't do this, and throwing as hard as you can doesn't do this. I think clearly what does it is the weight training to get stronger to try to throw harder. And I'm of the strong opinion that they should cut out most of it. I might have mentioned you on one of these others that I was at a banquet, and Fergie Jenkins was there. We talked about this, and I asked Fergie about back when he was pitching if they listed weights, and he said no. And most of those pitchers, they just don't think it's a great idea. And the thought was, it used to be thought that you needed to be loose so you shouldn't lift weights. So here's what I think. I think it's clearly because of the conditioning, and the COVID things made it worse because these guys got off the routine and they got stronger, then they had to stop, and then they get stronger again. But what I think the answer is just don't be so obsessed with throwing 98. And honestly, I don't know, maybe is Greg Maddux anybody's pitching coach now? Offhand?
I'm not really sure. I know his brother is, Mike, but I'm sure Greg is working with someone, but I don't know at what level.
Because, as you know, he had this famous quote where he said, Roger Clemens and I pitch exactly the same way. He just does it, I forget exactly, but he just does it as a higher rate of speed. And his point was you have control and you change speeds. So, I don't know. I think if it were me, the question is it inherently that much better to throw 96 than 92? Are these guys that much better? If you got the pitchers from today facing off against, Billy Williams and Ron Santo and Ernie Banks, would they just be destroying them more so than the pitchers did back then? Personally, I don't think so. And what I think is that everybody chases velocity. And in chasing velocity, you have to chase strength training. And I think the strength training leads exactly to what's going on. And I don't think it's going to get any better. When you get guys like a Strasburg, these guys that are throwing 100, you're just exceeding the loads that the ulnar collateral ligament in the elbow, that's Tommy John surgery ligament, can get. So I don't think there's a good answer. I think they're carrying 30 people instead of 25 now just to get more pitchers. So the way it's going is you just have just an endless supply of pitchers, and they're all going to get hurt. And so my out of the box thought is that look for the Greg Madduxes of the world. If Greg Maddux were pitching today, would he be successful? I think he would be. So, get Greg Maddux out there, make more Greg Madduxes, ease way up on the conditioning. But see, the thing with that is there's an army of strength and conditioning coaches, and this is their religion, and I don't fault them. It's what they do. But I think it's a road to oblivion for pitching.
It's a very, very good point, Doctor. And, the great Tim Grover, who worked on the great Michael Jordan, his transformation of his body from basketball to baseball, And of course, many of our viewers and listeners who had a chance to check out The Last Dance about the Bulls dynasty team in the 90s, Tim Grover said it's very difficult. It was very difficult and very challenging transforming Michael Jordan's body from a basketball perspective to a baseball body. And then once he was done with that, to come back to the basketball court, the type of training he had to go through and converting his body back to that. Do you think that it's more of a business decision that these players now are putting more emphasis on weight training and lifting the weights? Because you're absolutely right. Back in the day when we were coming up, it was clearly stated that, baseball players, and especially pitchers, should not work out, should not lift weights because of the bulk and because of the stiffness. And you're going to lose some velocity and you're going to lose, some movement on your baseball, your pitching. So it was more important and better to stay away from the weights. But nowadays, and again, from a business perspective, the players are bigger, faster, stronger. And as an owner, you want a pitcher that's going to throw high 90s, 100 miles an hour fastball, because it's going to keep the defense or your opponents off balance. How do you find the balance in today's game with these pitchers who are making an enormous amount of money, partly due on the fact that they can throw 100 miles an hour? From a business perspective, from an owner's perspective, it looks attractive to me to have 2 or 3 arms on my roster who can do that.
Well, as I said, we talked a few weeks ago, we were talking about Wilbur Wooden, whatnot. Personally, the hypothesis that I would test if I were an owner, general manager, whatever, it's kind of like, things come outside of the box, Billy Ball, analytics, all that, right? Right. I would say to myself that getting pitchers that throw fast, I think you just have to be very lucky. They're going to get hurt. You're going to lose a huge part of your budget on it. I would be out there beating the hustings for Greg Maddox's. And I would hire Greg Maddux tomorrow. And because the guy was amazing, right? And I would hire Greg Maddux tomorrow. And I would say to him, go find guys that can do what you did. And like I said, I think you put those guys in the mound now, I think it'd be just as successful as he was, maybe more, because the flip side of this, on the batter's point of view, is with all the emphasis on home runs, it's kind of an analytics thing. It's kind of like the NBA, either be at the rim or do a 3-pointer, right? So in baseball, do a home run or anyway. So the hitters now don't make contact like they used to. More strikeouts. So I think these guys are probably a little easier to set up. I mean, the one thing that a big, strong guy can do is, maybe a pop fly, maybe carries to the wall. But yeah, I would hire Greg Maddux. I would look for Greg Maddox's. I think it makes your roster more sustainable. Your pitchers aren't going to get hurt. I think they'd be just as effective. I think with the batters too. I mean, I don't know. And maybe I'm just an old guy and a purist, but I don't like games where it's just all strikeouts and home runs. I just don't. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to go back to Ty Cobb when everybody's just hitting singles and doubles. But I think baseball is more enjoyable if you're getting base hits. I think the position players stay healthier. And so what I'm saying is, I think baseball is much more a technique game. I think the measurables matter less. I don't think you need to be super strong to hit or to pitch. And I would just, and then the guys do work on technique, more than they did. But I would just cut way back because it's a simple thing. Here's what happens. There's tendons. So you overload muscles and it makes the muscle stronger. That's true. But it wears out the tendons. And so what happens is that's what the shoulder is. It's rotator cuff tendonitis or ligaments in the elbow, the ulnar collateral ligament, all these things. So you're just gonna get hurt. Now I will tell you, a lot of people don't agree with me, and I think this partially because I might have mentioned far and away the commonest kind of orthopedic sprain and strain I see in my office is as a result of working out. And we're forever changing people's workout programs. We're telling them to use less weight, more reps, all that kind of stuff. So, I just see it so commonly. But the prevailing wisdom in a lot of areas is that the answer to avoiding injuries is to get even stronger, which I don't think it is, and to work even more on flexibility, even though there's virtually no evidence that flexibility helps, So I just think that people are over-conditioned.
No, I certainly agree with you. And I guess you and I are a couple of old school type of guys because we like the fundamentals of the game, and we like, technique goes a long way. I was at, Whitey Herzog, the old school manager with the St. Louis Cardinals. He used to call the little guys, Ozzie Smith and those guys, the little fleas that get on the base path. I was a little flea. I'm the guy that's going to lay down a bunt or, get a scrap base hit, get the first base, and then try to steal second and third so one of the big boppers can knock me in. That's the way the game is meant to be played. But as we evolved in the world, and we evolved in the world of sports, and as we all know, you talk about Greg Maddux, the chicks dig the long ball back in 1998, of course. Fans dig the long ball, and they dig the strikeouts of a pitcher throwing 100 miles an hour. So that's the direction of the game. And, maybe you're onto something. Because Jerry Reinsdorf, the great owner of the Chicago White Sox, said, I will never invest, I'm just paraphrasing, but he would never invest in pitchers long term because, as you stated, Doctor, they break down, and you just can't predict how long these guys can go. So I agree with you. I side with you, and let's just hope that a lot of these pitchers, I don't know about the weight training, but let's just hope that they can be smart about their workouts, their development, their nutrition, and have longevity in the great sport of baseball. Speaking of the great sport of baseball, we're with Dr. Chad Pedromas. He is the president of Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Centers. Of course, Sports Medicine Update, the weekly podcast. Rob Manfred, the commissioner for Major League Baseball, just came out a little while ago as of this podcast and stated that because of the escalating numbers regarding coronavirus throughout Major League Baseball, if players and teams don't get a hold on it, by Monday of next week, first week in August, they may shut Major League Baseball down again. And one particular reason is because of the numbers that continue to go up with the Florida Marlins. St. Louis Cardinals have a couple players that have been diagnosed. We know the Cubs locally had their pitching coach spend 30 days in quarantine prior to the season getting started. But the numbers apparently are going up, and partly, doctors, due to the fact that these players aren't practicing social distancing and not following the protocol that's been put into place. What are your thoughts? Have you heard anything of this, and what are your thoughts regarding moving forward?
Well, to tell you the truth, I think that there's something to be said for just powering through it. So I look at it this way. When I was a kid, all you talked about was the players and who's good and who's bad, and talked about trades. And then when free agency came, it became like the salary cap. So even now, it's not only who's the best player, but, who's the best salary. And I think it gives another dimension to the game. You're playing general manager. Well, I don't know. The thing of it is that, and I hope I'm not mistaken, I've tried to kind of check, but these, half the Marlins roster, I guess, I haven't heard of a player yet getting seriously ill from this. And we know actually that they talk about 2-week quarantines, but we know that the contagious period is actually much shorter, probably something like 8-10 days, something like that. So what do I think? I think if you get COVID, it's like if you strain a hamstring. I think go down for, you can figure it out. And this is, whether it's 8 days, 10 days, 12 days, whatever, but just go down and come back. And I think they'll come right back. I don't think, in baseball in particular, where the guys are not the big, heavy guys that might be a little bigger risk, like maybe in football. So I think you let them come back, and I tell you reward them. So you get a team where the guys are really disciplined and they keep their players, then it's kind of like an injury thing, They'll have less injuries. That's what it is, I suppose. And then you just let the teams power through, because these guys that are going down, they're going to be right back. And then when they come back, actually the Marlins, the flip side of that is half their players are never going to get it again. So that's probably herd immunity, kind of right there. So that they're going to be protected. So I say let them go down, let them come back. I think the games go on, expand the rosters, let them bring other people in, and let them play. I think it's another variable, that might make it interesting. And I don't think it's a reason to shut it down. You just reward the people that are responsible. Now, if I'm wrong, and if, God forbid, people are getting seriously ill from this, then then I wouldn't do it. But I try to watch it as closely as I can, and I haven't seen where anybody has. And from the epidemiology of it, I think it's very unlikely that anybody will.
Well, here's the unfortunate thing, Doctor, is the fact that many of these players, it's not necessarily them, because we certainly understand that they're in supreme top condition as far as their health is concerned, because players, it's their livelihood, and owners, they've invested in these players. So they're put in a prime situation to be, the best athletes in the world, on the planet. But of course, they're human, and so they can obviously, contract this disease, coronavirus and COVID-19. The unfortunate thing about it, Doctor, is the fact that their loved ones, there are several players. Buster Posey for the San Francisco Giants catcher said, "Hey, you know what? I'm opting out of this season because I have young kids at home." That's the problem. It's the fact that, and we know the pitching coach again, Tommy Hatabi with the Chicago Cubs, spent 30 days in quarantine, and when he came back, he literally cried during the press conference because of the sacrifices his family had to make, and based on what he was enduring with this virus. So yeah, it's not necessarily the players themselves, because it appears that they're healthy enough and strong enough to be able to offset or fight off the virus. The unfortunate thing is, as you well know, with the mask and social distancing, that they can take it home and give it to a loved one who may be more in a vulnerable state. And of course, you don't want to get to the point where, it's life-threatening for a family member. So that's more of the reason behind shutting everything down, because these players are being irresponsible as far as how they're handling this.
Yeah, but I don't know. I mean, so what's the alternative? Are they going to go into complete quarantine? They're not. I mean, so first of all, kids, the head of the FDA, Redfield, was just in a podcast, and he estimates the incidence of a school child getting this is 1 in a million. It's about 5 mortality from school kids. This is from a quote. We're going to be putting it on Facebook, actually. It's 5 or 6 times greater that a school child will die from the flu than COVID-19. So I don't think taking it home to your kids is probably much of a concern. If you've got somebody who's at high risk, then by all means. Or look, if these guys are uncomfortable, I'm not second guessing anybody. You feel uncomfortable, absolutely opt out. But talking about objective medical risk, and how about spouses? I mean, is the alternative to be quarantined completely? They're not going to do that. And with those of us, I mean, I've been in the office throughout, right? So most of society they go about their business. They try to be careful. I wear a mask all the time, and so you just try to be careful. So I don't think a ball player going to a ballpark and being isolated most of the time is any higher risk than somebody working at a grocery store or a physician like myself or anybody else. And I don't think their families are at higher risk either. And if their children and their wives, and they're usually youngish families. If you've got a wife who's at high risk, I get it. If you're living with your grandparents, maybe you don't live with your grandparents. So, I don't think for the, high-risk people, the linemen in football, another discussion for another day, I guess, may be different. But it's not like the alternative. It's not like baseball puts them at any greater risk. And as you've seen, why did these guys get this? Is because they went out. These guys are not going to quarantine full-time, right? Most people don't. I would argue that they might be safer playing baseball because it gives them something productive to do with their time. I mean, think if you're not playing baseball, what are you going to do? Sit around the house all day? Get bored? Are they going to quarantine until we get a vaccine? So, again, if you feel uncomfortable, you definitely shouldn't do it. But personally, I think for baseball in particular, plus the game is outside, maybe you do things like you don't have people sit in the dugout. I don't know. But I think if they powered through it, I don't think they'd be any worse off than if they didn't.
Well, I'm not a doctor. I don't pretend to be one. I'm not a scientist. I certainly don't pretend to be one. I'm just a sports guy talking about the news and the events that are taking place in the world of sports. And it's definitely a pleasure to have an opportunity to talk with you weekly about the world of sports from a medicine perspective and, injuries and, of course, COVID-19. And before we move on, or before we say goodbye, Doctor, you talked about the National Football League, and they're supposed to get everything started. There's no preseason. They're supposed to get everything started, the regular season, on September 10th. But there have already been at least 20 to 22 players who have opted out around the league, saying that, for health precautions or health reasons, they're not going to participate in this upcoming 2020 National Football League season. Smart move by these guys, or overly cautious?
I think it's a different story than baseball. And number one, I mean, you can social distance for most of a baseball game. I mean, there's some exceptions. And like I said, even in the dugout, why not just put these guys in the stands a few feet apart? Football, you can't. And furthermore, as I mentioned a week or two ago, some of these guys are so heavy, I mean, they have to be, that they are at some risk if they get it to not do well. And I've been looking at the list of the people who have opted out, and it's not, universal, and I didn't do statistics, but there is a preponderance of the big guys opting out. There's an occasional wide receiver or cornerback, but not nearly as many. So, yeah, I mean, Eddie Goldman on the Bears, notable. Yeah. So, great player, real big guy. I don't know what he weighs, 320 maybe, something like that, nose tackle. So, yeah, I think, if I were Eddie Goldman, I think maybe I'd opt out too, because I think if he gets sick, he's got a much greater chance of having something bad happen. And by virtue of the position that he plays, I think he's likelier to get it. So I get it with those guys.
Yeah, I mean, it appears as if of the 22 players at this podcast taping recording, most of them, majority of them, are offensive linemen or defensive linemen or defensive end, and obviously it's due to the weight that they carry, but also some of the health conditions that they live with, and some, of course, with their spouses or their young kids at home, whether they just had a baby or they have a little one at home. The simple fact that they can contract it, it's a higher risk too, Doc, that they can take this home to their family members. They just figure, hey, it's better to be safe than sorry. And that's a lot of, there's a lot of speculation, a lot of finger pointing regarding the owners, saying it's more about the wealth than the health of these players, because, understanding that we're going through this pandemic, it appears that owners across the board, regardless of whatever league it may be, the NBA, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the National Hockey League, or whatever the case may be, that the owners are more concerned about getting back to action to save some type of, to generate some type of revenue because of the contract agreements with television or what have you, and that they're less concerned about the health of these players. And that's one reason why we saw the back and forth with Major League Baseball, is because the players union said, hey, wait a minute, you guys want to get back and you're putting our guys at risk, and we got to come up with a happy medium. Is it more wealth than health regarding getting these sports and these teams back to, the playing field?
I mean, it's,
that's the question that's being thrown around.
I don't want to be cynical, but, isn't it kind of always about money? At the end
of the day.
Yeah, but I'll say this to you: it's great now that they collectively bargain, though, because with the players, for the owners, of course, it's about money, but I think it is about the players too, because the fact of the matter is they're not being conscripted and forced to play. So any deal they've got, I think, of course, it's the money. Obviously, it's the money, but I think that it's as much the players being interested in the money as the owners, because if the players said we don't want to play, we don't care about the money, they wouldn't play. So the fact that they're playing means they care. Don't you think?
Yeah. And before we say goodbye, Doctor, of course, locally here in the Chicagoland area and across the state of Illinois, IHSA just decided that they're going to move all the fall sports, football, volleyball, soccer to the spring, just to protect these young kids from the potential of, again, COVID-19 and coronavirus. Good move by IHSA.
That's a great move. I actually used to be an advisor to those guys, and I think the kids need to get back to class. They are in Europe. I think they need to get back to class. I think that's, and I don't think it's a risk to the kids, little risk to the teachers. I think it needs to happen. I mentioned what the head of the government official was saying about problems of kids being home. But having said that, I think you take small risk there for good reasons. But I think for sports, I think that's a great place to cut risk. And so I think I'm glad they did it. I think it's smart. I think it's a great, get the kids in class, get them out with their education, let the sports wait. Great move, I think.
No, I think it's a great move as well. It's going to be interesting to see how they can implement this when you got, football, you got basketball, you got track and field, you got baseball, all in the, after January, 1st. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this works, because I talked about this with my family, and I said, most high school kids are 2 or 3 sport athletes. So if you're going to move football to the spring, I'm sure you got a player or two who's on both the football team and the basketball team, or they're running track or they're running baseball. So that's going to be a really interesting dynamic to see how, schools can finagle and make all of this work.
Yeah, you're right. I think you're right. I think people are creative. I think it's one of the things that makes America great, actually, is that it's a pluralistic society, and you get different people trying different things instead of a top-down approach, and see what happens. But I think people are creative, and I think they'll work out good solutions.
No, I think so too. And let's just hope that we can get around this bend, around this curve here, and get back to some sense of normalcy. We got to do what we have to do. As they say, when it all started, we're all in this together, Doctor. Any closing thoughts? And how can people get a hold of you if they have any questions or any interest in learning more about sports medicine?
Yeah, I'll tell you. So closing thoughts, just briefly. I think things are on a good track. I think we're going to beat it. I think we're well on the way between therapeutics, vaccine, responsible behavior. So I know I put out a newsletter, and I've had a number, and it's based on studies, and I've had a number of my patients tell me that they get so depressed reading about it. And they said, we're glad to see an optimistic approach. And I'm not Pollyannish, so I would just say this. I think we're gonna do well. Contacting me, our phone number is 847-699-6810. Email is just ortho@ISMOC, Illinois Sports Medicine Orthopedic Center .net, and we welcome calls, emails, and we've got a very good staff to field them.
You have a very good staff, and of course, you're the man that leads the charge. You're a fearless leader. Dr. Chad Padromas, the president, Illinois Sports Medicine and Orthopedic Centers. The weekly podcast, Sports Medicine Update. Doc, it's been a pleasure. And as you can tell, I'm out on the deck, man. It's a beautiful, beautiful day in the state of Illinois, just outside the great city of Chicago. And let's hope we can have more days like this, because I enjoy being out here. And I obviously enjoy talking with you and learning as much as I possibly can, week in and week out, Doctor. Thank you so very much.
And my pleasure, Jerry. Thanks.
We'll talk to you.
All right.